Can you actually believe this? They've just put some new standing orders out, right? And they've created themselves a new speakers conference, right? Where the speaker's the chair of it, and it can have up to 14 members of his own choice, right? Absolutely his own choice. So they're not even voted for by secret ballot or anything, right? The speaker can choose them. He could possibly choose all Labour Party members, right, if he wanted to. It says that there shall be a committee to be known as the Speakers' Conference, which shall consist of the Speaker, who shall be chair, and up to 14 other members appointed by the Speaker. That means that he could say, well, I'll just want, the Prime Minister and, another Labour Party, person to be on it. The conference shall consider the factors influencing the threat levels against candidates and MPs, who shall be chair. The conference shall consider the factors influencing the threat levels against candidates and MPs and the effectiveness of the response to such threats, and make recommendations about the arrangements necessary to secure free and fair elections and the appropriate protection of candidates at future UK parliamentary elections and elected representatives thereafter. So free and fair, but that means not cheating. But I haven't actually heard of in the newspaper, unless I've missed the stories, any dangers or threats to candidates at all. In fact, the only threats to free and fair elections is cheating, right? Because the Reform Party are cheating at elections, there's no doubt about that. And that is the major threat at the moment to democracy, because they're taking over the media and cheating. And it's the non-party candidates, the candidates who don't have much funding or money, who are the ones who are under threat. It's like all these other candidates who want to try and get elected, who are actually under threat from all of the cheating going on, mainly by Ofcom, Michael Grade, the Culture, Media and Sport Committee. I've had to report to the police. Protecting candidates, from people who want to report them for committing offences? This is starting to, when I read this, I'm starting to think, are they trying to protect the corruption? It's almost like the reverse of the corrupt and illegal practices prevention. It's like, the citizens are the ones who are meant to be responsible for preventing corrupt and illegal practices. Firstly, right, no one can afford to bring on an election petition because it costs £5,000, right? The police are all affiliated with political parties because the police and crime commissioners are mainly Tory or Labour, right? They couldn't be more protected, in fact. And, there's been 3 million signatures that the Labour cheated and misrepresented, yet no one has appointed a inquiry into it, right? No one's appointed an inquiry into it, yet there's 3 million signatures, Is this free and fair elections? The emphasis on protecting members, and another thing, this is another point to this, right, that they're making out in this that, members need protecting, but that they're protected by law. They've got extra protection. They're not upholding the privileges. The Parliamentary Privileges Act 1770 is meant to fully protect members, right, from arrest. Who's protecting them from the police, right? The members haven't been protected from the police because they've been arrested when felony's been abolished, and they're not supposed to be prosecuted until the end of the sessions. So they can have confidence to act in Parliament, unless, this is from the courts, by the way, and the police, which is like the courts and the police, the judicial process. When we, the people, have a complaint against the conduct and behaviour of MPs, it can only be resolved in Parliament and not in any place out of Parliament. So a complaint or grievance against any misconduct in Parliament has to be sent into Parliament for resolution in Parliament, because we can't take it to a court or tribunal or anywhere out of Parliament, right? Now, MPs have their protection from the courts and police has not been properly upheld, right? So that's a massive failure of Parliament, because they haven't been upholding the Parliamentary Privileges Act properly, 1770, right, and postponing prosecutions. But all that protection that they haven't been getting from the police, which they should have been getting done, that when they're not acting properly in Parliament, or when parliamentary rules have been broken, or when they're cheating the public or giving false information or whatever, yes, the Parliament can decide its own matters, but we've got a right to submit those matters for them to decide, right, and hold them to account. They're meant to be able to be held to account through the e-petitions as well, which is not a place out of Parliament, because it's jointly run by the House of Commons and the government. And this is the one thing that what I think MPs can't get their head around, that they've got the privilege of the police not arresting them. They've got the privilege of, if they commit a private, personal crime, which is nothing to do with their parliamentary business, right, they're not meant to be arrested till the end of the session, because the voters have elected them to represent them in Parliament, right, and invested their power in them. But that is completely separate, right, their own personal crimes and offences in their own lives, right, that's completely separate protection from the police and courts than what they're doing under Article 9 of the Bill of Rights in their parliamentary work, right? And there is a redress, and that redress can be by petition, and the people who have elected them and put signatures towards them to be elected can also have them removed or held to account. But we've also got the right to not only just submit a grievance to the Parliament, we've got a right to petition the Parliament for action if they're not going to act, to compel them to act. Because, you know, if the odd person is just sending a complaint in, no one else knows about it, and it can just be brushed under the carpet, right? When it gets put on if it gets put on e-petitions, and if it's a legitimate claim, or someone believes it's a legitimate claim, if it's not a legitimate claim, then what has the MP got to worry about, right? Because they can just, you know, show evidence that, you know, it's wrong. They've got the platform, right? But when we have got a serious or true complaint against anything that's been done in Parliament unlawfully or wrong, then we've got the right to collect many signatures and compel them to act on it. And that might affect the whole party, or it might affect one member or whatever, but, you know, and we can compel them, you know, Parliament to take action, whether it's the Privileges Committee or the Procedure Committee or whatever, and by them obstructing e-petitions, it is basically concealing wrongdoings. And if it isn't a wrongdoing, then what have they got to be afraid of, right? If the accusation is not true, they've got nothing to be scared of then, have they? Because they can just, put some evidence on there or attach a note, or they've got the platform or voice to respond, right, where everybody hears them, right? And that is the major fallacy, that they're wanting to kind of like block our legitimate complaints, which are through the legitimate process. If MPs were obstructing or blocking complaints and grievances from collecting public support or concern, then they would not have anything to worry about. All this kind of like, worrying about, the security of MPs or whatever. Well, if they were providing for a proper process of grievance, where people can actually, compel them to act through lawful, legitimate means, then they wouldn't need all this, because, all these other people wouldn't be resorting to whatever other means that apparently, according to this, it's something they're trying to make it sound like they've been resorting to. So, if MPs were behaving properly and conducting themselves properly, and there weren't things to pull up Parliament on, then, there isn't really anything to worry about. And there's been that many MPs you know, when MPs have been committing crimes and offences, they've ended up being prosecuted wrongfully anyway, and so it kind of seems a bit of a strange way to go about doing this. And free and fair elections, what is going to happen about, like this big Michael Westwood petition that's got 3 million signatures? Where's a public inquiry? And what about Reform UK? So far, the problem is that I think what Parliament needs to accept is that things have been done wrong, right? There are things that are being done wrong and that have been done wrong. And that if we don't get a resolution for that, then there's no integrity to the government at all whatsoever, And with the elections, look at all these. There were, I think, about 15 candidates or so in that Runcorn and Helsby by-election, and Reform only won by 6 votes, yet Reform and Labour had got all the votes. And what about all those other people who were receiving unfair treatment after Reform Party had got a lot of publicity from places like GB News, and they hadn't paid for it? It was all free. So this is it.